More candidates are announcing their fundraising numbers for the third quarter. We're breaking down the donations to their campaigns. But one candidate, for some reason, appears to continue to be excluded from the cable news coverage.
Team Rising is here to weigh in. Deshandra Jefferson is a Democratic strategist, previously served as Southern Regional Communications Director for the DNC. Marshall Kosloff, media fellow at the Hudson Institute, co-host of the Realignment podcast. Full disclosure, I'm the other co-host of the podcast.
So this is Sauter's other co-host. Meeting of the co-hosts.
This is a meeting of the co-hosts. They can battle it out here.
Tell us who's better. No, just kidding.
No, ooh, gosh, I can't do that
like
one.
when my kids are like,
so
I'm really your favorite, right, Mom?
I'm going for Crystal.
No
offense, brother.
No comment. We have a very interesting new stats out. We got the fundraising numbers for Q3. Told Elizabeth Warren's numbers will be coming out relatively soon. However,
expectation is they'll be big too.
The major news out of yesterday is that Joe Biden's number posted only $15.2 million. That's less than Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders. $10 million less than Bernie Sanders. Barely beating Kamala Harris, and only 1/3 more than Andrew Yang. Deshandra, I mean, his entire thing was he was supposed to be the rock-solid, most electable guy. This is not a good
All he does is fundraise.
Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be rock solid and locked down, and
she had a lot of money too.
You know, I was thinking about what job I wanted in the administration, but you know what? It didn't work out.
Right.
Instead, you're here.
Fundraising is a really good barometer
for
how people feel about candidates, but it's not the only barometer.
Sure.
You know, again, I am not on the I'm not on the Biden train.
Yeah.
I was thinking the old 70-year-old white guy in the race. But look at it, Bernie really posted some strong numbers.
25 million.
That's what people should be talking about, because I know he's worried about Warren. And a lot of people are looking at Warren as a more palatable, alternative. He should be worried about her. Biden barely registered with these fundraising numbers.
Well,
what do you think, Marshall?
And you think about it, Marshall, I mean, Bernie's stitching this together $18 at a time.
Yeah.
Biden's out there with oil execs and whoever. I mean,
pharma.
I looked, and he, 43 high-dollar events. He barely campaigns, but he's been hitting the fundraising trail hard and yielding very little in terms of return.
Yeah, and what's also going to be difficult is that because those early donors are maxing out, he actually has less runway.
Exactly.
So as time goes on, his fundraising numbers are going to continue to sort of lessen down, because unlike with Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang, his number who started with smaller donations, his actual numbers were much larger at the start. So you're going to see those diminishing returns. And then the other problem, the well's dry, and then news isn't exactly great on his front either. So you're going to want to have a situation where he looks incredibly strong, and that's not happening right now.
And that was his whole thing, right? That was his whole thing. Is he's supposed to be this juggernaut? He's like, I'm going to come in, clear the field, raise $100 million.
His whole approach was like, I'm not even going to talk about these other candidates. Just me versus Trump.
Jeb Bush did the exact same thing in 2016. He raised $100 million. Everyone was like, oh gosh, me and Jeb, he's going to take us out.
Except he
fell
raised
flat
it,
on
though.
his face. And that's the thing.
He actually was able to raise.
He actually raised the money. I mean, none of the promises, Deshandra, of the Biden campaign have yet come true. And the more and more that he tries to contrast himself, it's not working. It's actually, funnily enough, Bernie Sanders in his latest ad, it did a direct contrast with President Trump. He flipped to the Biden strategy, saying, I am actually a front runner in this race. Biden, I think, in the next debate is going to have to start going after some of these other candidates to differentiate and show himself up at the top.
Yeah.
I don't know if Biden can start a knife fight, or really if he should, because he's barely able to talk about his own policies.
Coherently.
Coherently. He's not doing a good job on that debate stage. He's not doing himself any favors. I think the other candidates should be welcoming a Biden on that stage, because he's the front runner. He's taking all the slings and arrows, and he's not doing a good job of deflecting.
What's hard for him was it was all the idea of Biden. The idea was this person who spent 8 years in the White House, decades in the Senate, was going to be the powerful person who could take on President Trump. However, now that's not becoming true, and you have to engage with the actual Biden, who is a older gentleman who, frankly, isn't completing on the fundraising space correctly. But it's not a great space to be in.
He doesn't. I mean, his whole case has rested on, I'm the most electable, I'm solid, I'm the sure thing. And that's why, look, another candidate who's like scrappy and up and coming could weather these numbers, but when you're supposed to be the front runner, you're supposed to be the juggernaut, it looks
Well, I'm
bad.
still bitter from 2016, because Hillary was supposed to be the juggernaut. Hillary was supposed to win, and clearly that didn't happen. We've got to stop this whole
learn our lessons.
Electability debate. We have a phenomenal, array of candidates who are running right now. I'd like to see someone else get a little bit more spotlight. Biden is not electable, he's not inevitable, and God save America and the Democratic Party. if he's our nominee.
Well said.
I love Deshaun.
I do have to say, we also should throw up President Trump's numbers. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, we've got $125 million that Trump currently has in the bank. He actually raised $13 million in the 2 days after his impeachment inquiry. So, I mean, in terms of fundraising juggernaut, it really is almost flipped on his other side. I do caution, though, the people who read this, which is that if he doesn't have the same type of message in the campaign, Marshall, having all those hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not going to do anything. That's exactly what Mitt Romney had plenty of money, right?
Yeah,
Nothing
because
happened.
This is going to be competed in sort of small specific states. It's going to be about turnout, it's going to be about excitement. And Trump has that, though. Like, that's actually the key thing here, though.
Right.
Which is that the most ironic part about the impeachment inquiry is that is just solidifying Trump's base.
Yeah.
You're not seeing Republican voters flee him. You're not seeing Republican politicians largely go against him there, too. Yeah. The fundamental thing he has to do, he's doing it, and that's Joe Biden's problem. He's not doing that.
He's actually doing his own job.
Sagar pointed out, which I love, he raised as much money in the 3 days.
2 days.
2 days after impeachment as Biden raised the entire quarter. So that's amazing. Meanwhile, over on our friends CNN, attempting to report on Q3 fundraising numbers. They've got Bernie there, they got Pete, they got Biden, they got Harris. And then they go to Booker, forgetting completely the fact that Andrew Yang raised $10 million. It's not the first time, Deshandra, that Yang has been left down, ignored. His name was wrong on MSNBC. I mean, what is going on?
How do you
with
get
these
Andrew
people?
Yang wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's just such an easy name to remember. Listen, he's just not taken seriously by the political establishment. He's not taken seriously by the media.
He's
a random.
To people who gave him $10 million.
I mean, how many of them are Republicans who think that he's a running joke? Okay, let's be real here.
I don't think he's a running joke.
You know what? When I go to the polls in March in Virginia, I will not be voting him. I don't expect to see his name on the ballot. I think he's been a distraction. You know, I don't think he's a serious candidate. You know, I'm all in for Warren. I think I want to see more from her. I can't wait to see what her fundraising numbers.
It's going to be big.
It's going to be big, and that's going to be a good story. But Andrew Yang, he's just the average guy running for president, and his novelty is going to wear off.
But that's what's so interesting about him, because he is. I mean, Washington Post very dismissively called him random man running for president.
Yep.
And yet here he is, outraising Booker, coming up on the heels of Biden in terms of fundraising numbers, and to the contrary of him not being a serious candidate. I think he's one of the only candidates who's actually talking about one of the most important shifts in our economy, whether you like his solution or not. With automation, he has introduced an idea into the conversation that was not there at all. And our own polling here at the Hill shows that it has had a profound impact in terms of the number of people who support UBI. So on the, Cory Booker hasn't moved the national conversation one bit. Andrew Yang has profoundly changed the way people are thinking about and talking about automation already.
Yeah, in complete disagreement. I think he's a completely serious candidate. Andrew Yang is a person who no one knew who he was about a year ago. He had no email list, he had no title, nothing was going on. But this is a person who's used the big idea, an idea I disagree with actually, to actually come up to this point. So I think that unlike a lot of the other also-ran candidates who are sort of running for a resume line or running because they sort of have been either in a governorship or a senator seat for a long time, he actually has long-term staying power because of that. And I think the fact here is that it's not that there's a conspiracy when he's left off of the list. It's actually sort of, to use a term from the left, implicit bias, because people sort of aren't used to a political system where just because you don't have a big title like senator, ambassador, governor, mayor,
that you belong on the stage.
That you belong on the stage. And we're going to continue to see that.
Box.
And I appreciate that reference to implicit bias. I'd love to hear you use in other references. Maybe I'll get that out of you. And I do think he has raised automation and talking about the economy, but he's still a one-issue candidate. And I have problems with universal, basic income.
I think if you look on his campaign website and you talk to him, and we've interviewed him several times, he's got a lot going on outside of just UBI.
And maybe this is my own implicit bias.
There you go. That's your own.
Warren, come save America.
You're coming to terms with your own bias here. However, you guys will have to sit tight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.